Okay, welcome everybody. I didn't realize it was going to it's switched and then switched back. So I guess we're back on the. Okay, I guess we're back on the dynamic scenes. That's okay. Good. As you can see, Paul's my co-pilot tonight. Thank you for being here, Mr. Paul.
Hey, glad to be here.
Uh, Ryan is out rocking in the USA somewhere. I'm not sure where and what he's doing, but I think that's why he's not here. And Bob had some family issues that he's going to be taking some time off. So hopefully he'll be back in the near future. So, but anyway, tonight it's me and Paul. And Paul, do you know what the big CNC news is?
Vectric 12.5.
That's it.
Hey, have
That's
you
what
have you got it?
I have not yet.
Nor have I.
I probably will. Usually I think it was released yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. And usually when that comes out, I don't go running to the computer and getting it. I wait until other people have got it, and then you'll hear them griping, going, "Oh man, it's got this bug," and then they have to do a patch or something. So I don't get in any hurry to get it. And of course, I'm on. In fact, I think if I'm not mistaken, when I open up my Vectric now, it comes up and it says there's something else about 12.0 something, and I hadn't even got that. I'm on 12 something, but there's still probably one or two little things that I hadn't even gotten. Uh, but I probably will eventually get the 12.5. It's probably going to be the last free one that I'll get. I almost didn't get 12 back when it came out. I had 11 and 11.5, whatever it was. And I'd pretty much decided I was done. I wasn't going to keep spending that money to get that new version because although they do add some nice features, it's usually a lot of the stuff that I don't use. You know, I do kind of simple stuff or what stuff and even when they change the way you do something and make it easier and nicer, I've been using it so long, I'm already used to doing it maybe the wrong way, but it works. So, I'm like that old dog. You have trouble teaching new tricks. So,
And the only thing that matters is that it works.
yeah, I mean, like I said, I've been doing this. First version I bought it was like 4.6. So, I've been at this way longer than a lot of people. So, I've already figured out how to do stuff even before they had a feature that would work. And then when they come up with going, okay, now we made this easier, I usually forget about it, and I'm always doing everything my old way. So, uh, okay, Jerry's saying Paul's video is sharp and clear. Dave's not so much. Okay, well, do I look fuzzy to you?
Yeah,
Do I?
yeah, you do. You look like your internet is slow or something.
Oh, okay. I look good and clear here on EVMux, but over on YouTube, yeah, that doesn't look good. I'm wondering, let me see if this light's washing it out. No. Well, let me,
You have to get after Spectrum, huh?
yeah, I don't know what's going on. Let me exit out of here and I'll come right back.
All right.
We'll try that. You keep them entertained
Uh,
while I'm
I'm not
gone.
going to do a song and dance.
You go right ahead. I want Anna too.
Uh, Dave was talking about the new version 12.5 of Vectric. I was lucky when I first got Vectric, I got version 10 dot something. And just after I had it, they came out with version 11. Well, I got a free download of version 11. I thought, boy, this is pretty neat stuff. Well, then they came out with version 12, and I found out I had to pay for that one. Well, then I wasn't real happy with it anymore, but I paid for it and got it. And so I have 12 now, and I'll probably get the 12.5 and dirty lens. Wouldn't that be something?
That might be what it is. Does
I
it
think
look better? No.
it might be a little better. Still, Marcellus is still hazy, Dave.
Well, I just don't know.
I think that's a little better. I think you solved the problem.
Let me get a. Let me see if I can find a.
Yeah, Marcello even says it's better.
Okay, that yeah, it looks maybe it's just dirty. You know, I guess you do have to clean these things once in a while. All right. Hopefully that will be.
That made a world of difference.
Let's see. Now y'all got to excuse that mess back there on that machine behind. That has been my my work table. Yeah, I cleared it up good.
Yeah.
It's just dusty as heck, I guess. All right. All right. Yeah. So I'll try to keep that blocked sitting here, but that's I got all kinds of stuff on there because of what I've been working on, which is what I'm gonna show y'all tonight. But yeah, the I guess like I said, the big news is Vectric 12.5 is out. I haven't got it, but I did watch the video by Becky, and she's going through step by step, telling you what new features are and showing you a little something and everything. I tell you what, I'm sure she's a really nice gal, but man, I have a hard time understanding her. Her accent is just thick as all get out.
I'm so glad you said that, because that's what I was going to say when you got done talking about her, that I can't understand what she says.
Yeah, well, I like watching the Vectric tutorials and stuff, but I always hate when I click on one and then I find out it's her doing the talking, because I'm like, oh man, I cannot understand her. Her accent is way thicker than a lot of some of those others. Some of those others. Yeah, Marcelo says the maid hadn't been in to clean yet. Yeah, my maid hadn't been here in almost 20 years. So. I think that did help it out a little bit, though.
Oh, it did, yeah.
Maybe a little bit. All right. Well, I guess we won't waste a whole lot of time. I'm anxious to show you what I've been working on, because I know a lot of people have been wondering, trying to take guesses and all that stuff, and it's probably not going to be what you think. But let me get. I'm going to get some stuff screen shared over here. Let's do this. Now let me do. Okay, let me do that. All right, let's add this, and we'll do it. We'll do it this way. All right. Do y'all remember this old green frame? And I know it's ugly. You don't have to tell me. I don't know what possessed me to paint it that color. I must have went to Ace Hardware and they had that on sale or something. I don't know. It just didn't look good after I did it. But anyway, this is an old Sidewinder frame for a 4x4 that I designed probably about 17 years ago. And if you look close, let's see, can y'all see you can see my little mouse. If you look close here, you can see back here on the back, the way these form channels stick out. That's a NEMA 23 bolt pattern right there. And then you'd put the little bearing up here. So this was designed to run NEMA 23s, stepper motors, uh, Acme lead screws, the good old half 10 5-star Acme lead screw that I always use so much from McMaster. And then if you look close, you might be able to tell that there's a rail on the side of, you can kind of see it on this one here. And when I say rail, what it was some 1/4-inch flat bar that I had a machine shop put a bevel on the top and the bottom of it. So you would run V-groove bearings on the top of that. Well, I put this thing together, and there's more to it. What I'm standing here talking in front of it here in this video, but it's just the main table part. The rest of it, the gantry and all that, isn't on it. And I had put it all together and everything and run it, and it was okay. The table is, it's really solid when you get it all bolted together because it's all out of 11 gauge steel. But I just never liked the machine. It just moved way too slow for my liking, and it was kind of clunky. And so I never used it. I took it back apart, and again, we're talking probably 2008 when I first did this. So I took it apart, and it just stood in the corner or leaned up against the wall for years. And this is probably this video here is probably fairly early 2016 or mid 2016. And what I'm talking about in this video is how I am going to use this now as just a big assembly table, because I was coming out with the GarageWorks CNCs, and then of course shortly after that the Gatton CNC. So I was basically using it as a good sturdy table to build machines on. And then some of you may remember just a little later on that once I designed the Gatton CNCs and released those, and they started taking off with people buying kits, I was cutting those kits on a GarageWorks CNC, but I was the bed size wasn't as big as what this was. So I figured I was going to build my version of a Gatton CNC on top of this. And that's what I did. And I had that Gatton CNC sitting right here where I'm about to show you something else from 2016 to 2022. So for a good 6 years, that same ugly ass green frame sat there with a Gatton CNC built on it. Well, like I said, in 2022, I took that apart, and I took all of those pieces, it all bolts together. So I took them all apart and stacked them up and shoved them up under. I have like workbenches that's form an L shape back here, and then there's storage and stuff underneath there. So I just kind of threw everything up under there. And basically, I kind of forgot that I had that frame. And okay, now let me switch pictures here. We've looked at that ugly thing long enough here. Let me see if I can find the other picture. Where are they? Oh, maybe I don't even have them in here. I thought I did. Anyway, I don't see the picture I'm looking for. But anyway, so back in the end of February, I think first week in March or so, right behind me used to set my Avid CNC. 4x4 Pro 4848, beautiful machine. And I just never used it, and everybody always kidded me because the only time they saw it was when I was doing an unboxing of something else, and it was my assembly table for lasers and diode lasers and other machines, and SainSmart and NEMA Labs machines and all that. And I didn't really use it much, so uh, I knew that my friend Melinda was interested in getting that from me if I ever sold it. So uh, I told her I was thinking about selling it, and she says, "Well, if you sell it, I want it." She never, really didn't even ask me about price. She just said, "If you sell it, I want it." So I'm like, "Okay." So we worked out a fair price and all, and in March, she got that machine, and now it's sitting about 20 minutes from here in her shop. Well, she had. I know I'm getting long-winded here telling this story, but it'll all make sense when I get done. She had an old Sidewinder just like the one that's behind me, and after a few days, she says, "Well, uh, let's." She says, "If you want this thing," she says, "you gave me that most of that anyway." She says, "If you want it, come get it." She says, "I need it out of my shop." She just wanted to get it moved out of her shop. So I went over there and got it, and then I thought, well, that'd be kind of cool to leave this one kind of like it is and take hers and just go crazy with it. Do some different things with it. And so I was kind of thinking about that anyway, doing a different kind of a build using that. But then I got to thinking, well, I guess it was, I'm going to call it seller's remorse. Started setting in on me, and I started missing that Avid because I'm like, man, that thing was really nice, and plus it had that 4x4 bed. So I come out here to the shop, and all of a sudden, I looked under that thing and I saw that old frame, that old ugly green frame, and I thought, man, I forgot about that thing. That's a good sturdy machine frame. So I started thinking about what can I build using that frame. So I started getting some ideas, and I thought, by golly, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to build another machine, and I'm going to use that frame. So first thing I had to do, let me get this over here. First thing I had to do, I had to get rid of that ugly green color. So I got all the parts out. I had to dig around to find them all because a couple of them I'd had, for some reason, I had way around there in one of my old storage buildings. So I went to Ace Hardware and got some bunch of rattle cans of one of my favorite colors, machine tool gray. So I painted them all machine tool gray so they would at least look a little better. And then I built that frame. It is sitting right here where my CNC used to sit. In fact, that's the same frame. It was just an ugly green back when I did that. But I've added a few things to it. I've added just a few things to it. If I
Well,
can
it
get
is a metal frame, right?
what's that?
It is a metal frame.
Yes, this is the metal frame, and I started thinking about, okay, now how can I do this? 'Cause I want to build a nice machine. I want to use that frame, but again, as I mentioned earlier, this was designed 17 years ago, so it's designed to use NEMA 23s and old Acme lead screws and stuff like that. And I'm like, I want to do something different. I think I showed uh, in a few episodes back how I had some NEMA 34 motors and some big drivers and all that. And I thought, well, I've got three of those motors, so I could use a NEMA 34 for the X and then the other two for the Y. And then I could probably use a NEMA 23 for the Z. That would work on the Z good enough. So I started formulating a plan, and I'm going to show you, if I can get this other camera, what I've got so far. Now, I've still got a lot of little small things to do. But there is what I've got so far. It's still lacking a few things. You can see I've got my 2.2 kilowatt water-cooled spindle mounted on that Z-axis there. And if you look kind of in the center of that picture or the camera shot, uh, back there on the wall, you can see the VFD is still hanging back there from where I used it on my Gatton CNC. And when I took my Gatton CNC apart, all I did was unplug that cable, wound it up, and hung it over the VFD. So it's really ready to go. I just need to feed it back through the drag chain. I do have two drag chains on here, as you can see. And if you look there, that big one sticking out there, that's one of the NEMA 34s that's on the x-axis, and I had the other two NEMA 34s back there on the y-axis. And you can't quite see it with that camera shot, but the motor on top of the Z is a one of the NEMA 23s. Like I said, I don't know, I probably got 20 of those around here of different types. But there it is. Now, the big difference with this thing and the big challenge I had in getting it to this point is, as I mentioned earlier, it was designed to run a whole different kind of way. Lead screws, Acme lead screws, NEMA 23s. So everything lined up with that. And now when you throw a big motor into the mix and all this, and plus I'm using, I think you can tell there from that picture, all the axes have the profile linear rails. Those are ball screws instead of Acme rod. That Z-axis assembly that you see there, I actually bought that online. I was going to make it, but I thought, well, for what I paid for that, I couldn't hardly got all the materials, and not to mention the time to spend. So I just bought that, and it's so far it's working. I did have to modify it a little bit. I had to, and it's a good thing I have a manual mill, because they made the plates up there where the NEMA 23 motor sets, they were really high. You couldn't eat the coupler that they included, and it's even a 40 millimeter long coupler. It would not even reach. They had that so high. So I don't know whether they did that on purpose or what, but anyway, it's really made where you need to take that apart, take them two side plates off, and I took like 6 millimeters off of each one of them to get that to work. But that is what I've got so far. I've been out here just kind of running it, cutting air. It runs great. You can see my little box that I have mounted on the arm there on the corner, and I'll talk more about that here in just a little bit. But so many things to do. It's got 3/4 plywood as the base setting on top of the bed, and then I got I went and got a sheet of 3/4 MDF, That's a 49 by 49 piece that's sitting on top. And right now they're just sitting there. None of us attached. I threw it up there just to get a look at it, but I'm trying to make up my mind how I want to do the spoil board. You know, there's so many options out there. You can put the dog holes, or normally I put T tracks and then cut strips of MDF, put between, and then use my old wooden homemade clamps and stuff like that. But I'm really thinking I'm going to do something different this time. So that's why that's just sitting there. And I've got a lot of other little things I got to do before I worry about that. So I'm going to really just leave that just like it is, and keep thinking about it until I make a decision on how I'm going to do that. But I don't have any homing switches of any kind on it. That's kind of my next step. I've got Amazon will be bringing me some of the barrel type proximity switches. There are the other type. A couple of them came with that Z axis, so I'll probably use at least one of those on the top of that. I probably won't bother putting one at the bottom, but I will probably use the one at the top. The control box, if you look to the side of the machine on the left side, you can see there's like a gray box right underneath that drag chain on the y-axis. That's just a scrap plywood box that I made 24 inches by, let's see, I think I can probably bring up a picture here. Let's see if I can find it. I know it's in here somewhere. Oh, there it is. Oh, wait a minute. Is this it? Yeah, this is it. Let me, so we'll take that off and put this one on here. This is kind of what the controller box looks like so far. I've got I 3D printed some brackets, and there are 4 power supplies there. 3 of them are identical, and they're running 50 volts. And it's those 3 are running an EMA 34s. And then under the one on the right is a 0 to 48 volt power supply, and it's running. You can see that one driver is a smaller one. That's the DM542 that I'm using for the Z-axis. You've got, well, if you look on the right there, you can see the power coming in. Then I've made kind of like a distribution block and got the 110 power running to all of the power supplies. And then I also have that big fan that's over on the left-hand side. That's a fan that runs on 110. So I've got it tied in to that same distribution block. And then I'm doing something totally different with this one. And if you look close, you can see where that DB25 cable is. That's connected to a DB25 breakout board. And what I did is I bought 2 of those so that all of these wires, let's see if I can switch this. Here's what's inside the box. So here,
use the Masso.
Right here is another one of those DB25 breakout boards. So it makes it for a really clean install, is because you don't have to have all this big bird's nest of wires coming up to the Masso. You can just run, see, I've got all these things running to these pins on this DB25 breakout board. And then this cable is running over here to the Masso. And so all you have to do then is come off of those same pins and put them where they belong here. And you can see there's not a whole lot on here right now. I've got that's a 12 volt power supply right there that's powering the Masso. I've got the e-stop up here. This right here is just an extension, so you don't have to open the door to get to the USB to put your thumb drive in to load a program. And then, like I said, all you have to do then is use short wires to bring this up to wherever it's going. Now you can tell I don't have a whole lot on it right now. Right now, that's just the motors. So I will be adding the homing switches, but again, it'll be going. They're going to get powered. I haven't got it put on here yet. I'm 3D printing a bracket for it right now as we speak. But there's going to be a bracket right here holding a small 24-volt power supply, and it will power the proximity sensors. And then the output line of that will go here, which will then come back out over here and go to the pins on the Masso. So, and then of course I've got there's a VGA thing, and I'll have to show you. I don't know if I've got. Let's see if I can find it. No, no, there it is. This is how I did the front of that box. I've bought an identical monitor as the one I've got back here on this other machine. So it is a touchscreen, but as I have tested before, that old Masso, that Generation 2 Masso, only works with certain touchscreens. And unfortunately, the one I have does not. But I really like that touchscreen, so I went ahead and bought another one. And then I have it mounted to a hinged door of this box. This box is about 17 by 17 and about 3 inches deep. And then I just made these 3D printed brackets since mine's not touchscreen, so that I can, I've got a mouse thing right here, and then I can type whatever I need to type right there, or use the keyboard shortcuts to make this work. There's the e-stop, and again, there's that extension thing on the USB. I'm not super happy with this because that little arm right here, again, it's exactly the same as what I have back here on this other machine, and it works great for holding up just the monitor. But when you start getting a little weight to it, it's pretty flimsy. It's holding it up, and but it does shake a lot when the machine's running. So if I decide to stick with this setup, I'll probably come up with a DIY solution to a swinging arm, until I get ready to get the G3 Masso Touch, which is what I really want to run this machine. But anyway, there's when I just started out here with the thing. Here's a little video I shot. And by the way, before I forget, I'm having a video about this build, where it shows all the pictures and some videos of how, video clips of how I'm doing some of this stuff. It'll be getting published at 9 p.m. So about time we sign off here, it will be going live. So if you want to check that out, feel free to do so. But this is just to give you a little scoop on this. You can see the linear rails here, and I went back and forth on, did I really want to spend $400 and something on a piece of that aluminum extrusion? But after a while, I thought, well, if I just get aluminum flat bar or something like that, there's a lot of holes you got to tap and all this. If you get the aluminum extrusion, you still got to cut it to the right length and tap the holes on the end. But then you have those T-slots that make it real easy to do everything else. So I decided that it was going to be worth the money. But that sucker, it was $321 just for that piece, a 1,500 millimeter piece like that. And then the taxes and shipping was another $100. So it was $421 just for that one piece. And I had to really swallow hard when I clicked the buy now on that one. But now that I've got it done, I'm glad I went that route. It makes things much easier. But like I said, it's running good. But there's so many things I got to do. I've got to obviously got to do the spoil board when I make up my mind how I want to do that. I've got to come back here and get the cable for the this goes here on the um, water cooled spindle. I hope it's long enough that it'll fit through that those two drag chains. I think it will be because I had it in the drag chain before on my Gatton CNC. And then I've got to figure out the water situation. Well, one thing I'm thinking is if you noticed on one of these pictures back here, I don't know where it was.
Hey, Dave, while you're looking for pictures, Keith Stafford wondered why the 4 power supplies. He missed why there's 4 power supplies.
Well, I'm running 3 NEMA 34 motors, and the size of those motors, I might could have gotten away with running 2 on one of them, but I already had 3 power supplies, so I thought I'm just going to run everything on its own power supply. So, um, excuse me. And right now, for the initial settings, I don't have everything turned up power wise like it should be. Uh, I'm running 50 volts on those NEMA 34 motors, but I can go on the drivers up to 6 amps, and I really have them set at about half of that. Well, a little over 3, I think, right now, until I get everything broke in. I don't want to get everything going just crazy fast, especially when I don't have homing switches or limit switches and stuff like that. I don't want to tear anything up uh, by doing something stupid uh, until I get it all broke in and where I'm confident that everything's going to do what I say it will. So, what I was trying to find here, I don't know if I can. Excuse me. There. No, that's not it. Okay. Well, here's my chiller. Well, I just got in the way, but my OhmTech laser is just to the right of this machine, and I have a chiller that you have to run when you operate that laser. Well, it just so happens when I got that chiller, they sent me the one that will run 2 lasers. In other words, it has 2 inlets and 2 outlets. So you can hook 2 lasers up to the same thing. Well, my thinking was the ambient temperature that that thing gets is really not all. It's not, when I say chiller, it's not like it gets it ice cold. It's like, 60 degrees or something like that. So I'm thinking that since I have that spare inlet and outlet, I could buy some more of that really flexible hose. I think it's kind of a silicone type stuff, and use that on my water cooled spindle. And it would really be nice because then it's an enclosed thing. Uh, and I don't see any reason why that wouldn't work as long as I get it where there's no leaks uh, when I connect it to the spindle. So I'd probably have to use a little bit of that plastic, that orange plastic hose that you use. Uh, but that stuff it's just not made to go in drag chains. It's not made to bend and twist like that. When I had it on my Gatton CNC, I just had them going straight up and kind of hanging from the ceiling and then going down into that bucket. Is kind of the way I did it. So anyway, is there any other questions, Paul, before I get rambling on?
No, not just the one about the power supplies.
Okay. Well, let me throw this other camera back on here, and we'll fire it up. I can run it, and it's not very loud, obviously, when you're not running the thing. But I can show you. See if I can turn this where you can see this just for a sec. Okay, I guess that's high enough. I've got everything over here on a strip, so I just have to turn one switch, and you'll hear the fan kick on, and then of course the Masso boots up really quick. And then of course you have to do the e-stop check before that will shut off. I only got a couple of things on this thumb drive here. Bonus points for anybody that can tell what that is when it comes up. Probably a lot of y'all have ran that before on your CNCs.
There's kind of a reflection on the screen, so it's hard to tell.
Oh, okay.
Damascus Everglades 3 says, what kind of homing sensors are you planning on using, and where will you mount them?
Well, there's already, like I said, I bought this Z-axis off of Amazon, and it's already got some mounting holes for, let me find one of them. This is one of them. It's got mounting holes to put one at the top and the bottom of that. And it's these kind here. Like that. So I've got two of these. I'll probably only put one on top of the Z, and then I don't know, I may put the bottom one on just for the heck of it. But I'm using some, I call them barrel type, the round cylindrical type proximity sensors. And I want to use those because with this being this metal frame like it is, I can go to spots up here on the front and the back and real easily just drill a little hole for the size of that, and then fasten them, because they have those nuts you put on both sides, and put them, and then it can catch the upright as it goes by. It'll catch it. So all I got to do is put a hole towards the back, and if I want one towards the front, and wire the switches. So all that wiring won't even be running up through any drag chain. It'll just be running up under the table and going to the big controller box over here on the left. And then the output pin, once I connect it to that DB25 breakout board, it runs through that cable and goes up to the Masso. So, all right, let's.
John Thompson says a Roadrunner.
What's that, Paul?
John Thompson says Roadrunner.
Oh no, that's it's not the Roadrunner. That's a good guess. Of course, the Roadrunner that comes with Mach 3. I'd have to have that on the thumb drive to make it work with this. Let's see if I can get this thing. We got that loaded. We'll just zero it out right here where it's at. Let me bring that Z down a little bit.
Are the uprights for the gantry just flat stock, or is it angled?
These here, that the gantry sides, or the uprights as I call them, that's just 1/2 inch by 8 inch aluminum flat bar. And like I said, that's an 80 millimeter by 160 millimeter.
No, I think he's talking about the uprights at the end of the gantry that ride on that support the gantry. Or is that what you were talking about?
Yeah, right. Well, let's see. Oh, I don't have that. I don't have the right camera on it. Let me turn this camera a second. If I put it right here, yeah, this right here,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
that's half inch by 8 inches, and I think it's 19 inches tall is what I ended up making them. I didn't when I started out. I ordered pieces that came 24 inches, and I had planned on using all of it. But then when I got it, I'm thinking, well, by the time I put 3/4 plywood on here and 3/4 MDF, I lose uh, an inch and a half. So I'd take a 2x4 and set on the things to try to get an idea of what my clearance was. And I had a whole bunch of clearance under here. And then I thought, you know what? There's no need to make that much clearance. I don't, like right now, it's got right at 6 inches of clearance under the bottom of here. I had 8 inches clearance with my Avid, and I never even came close to using half of that with stuff I put on there. So I decided I'd rather get it lower. That way, there's the lower you can get it, the more sturdy it's going to be. Because the higher up you get it, you got more stuff to flex. So, but let me lower this Z down a little bit. We'll zero it out about there. We'll just run this thing around. I think we'll be able to talk fine over this. It's not that loud. We'll see. That camera looks like it might be dirty too. That's what happens when you try to do shows out here in a dusty environment.
Yeah.
But this is what I cut off of that $421 piece of aluminum.
Well, that's a big chunk of aluminum, isn't it?
Well, yeah, and I'm going to tell you, Paul, it came in, and I dreaded cutting it for about 2 days. And I knew I wanted to cut it off of this end. I don't think you can see it, but you know how shipping is. I even put a special note to the 80/20 people. I said, hey, make sure you pack it good so I don't get a corner bent up. And sure enough, that corner, I don't know if you can see it.
Yep.
It's all bent up right there. But
Now, did
so
you just
anyway, so
cut
I
that with
marked
a
this
hacksaw,
in,
did you?
and I was so worried about cutting this because I'm like, is my little old Ryobi saw going to be able to handle this? And I measured it off, double and triple checked my measurement, and went around there with my Ryobi miter saw, and it went through it. I didn't go very fast. I'd cut down a little bit. When I'd hear the saw starting to slow down, I'd just kind of stop and let it catch back up and then go down a little bit more. So it wasn't like cutting that little 20 by 20 stuff that you build frames and stuff out of, 3D printer stuff. But this is really beefy. that piece weighs about 42 pounds according to the shipping weight. So it is good and stout.
Jerry says that's a scrapper's dream.
He said, what?
It's a scrapper's dream, that piece you got left over.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, it's kind of funny because to start with, and if y'all watch the video that's going to go live in a little while, you'll see all about this because I'm showing you kind of the same stuff. But I started out making some plywood uprights out of 1/2-inch plywood. Because I'm trying to design this machine to use linear rails and ball screws and NEMA 34 motors and all this different stuff. But I have to conform it to the frame. Whereas normally when you design a machine, you design the frame around all those other components. Well, I'm doing it backwards. So trying to get all this stuff to work with a frame where everything's already in a certain position and you can't move it was kind of a challenge. So I cut a lot of plywood templates. I cut some uprights out of plywood and bolted them to the the guide bearings there, just so I can get an idea of what the clearance height and all that, and even the when I was trying to decide on the fancy extrusion, I 3D printed a piece. This is only about 1 inch thick, but that would give me an idea how it was going to work.
That's a good idea.
Oh, I have that 3D printer. It's been working overtime, making not only little parts that I'm using on this machine, but also making little jigs and fixtures and just stuff so I can get an idea. So you can see it's the same as this. Just I didn't want to print too much because it took forever with that detail. But then after I cut this off, if you look close, this is this side towards me is the boogered end. So it's got those 8 holes. But on the side I'm holding towards the camera, if you look in there, I actually tapped these holes after I cut this off so that I could again bolt something on there. And now I had the real piece before, so I could make some other parts that were going to work with this. And, so I use this as a fixture as well. So. But like I said, right now I've got the power on those NEMA 34s really only about halfway until I break this in. I've been running this program, which by the way, nobody guessed that I saw, but if you've ever run one of the Vectric softwares, back one of the first free projects they come out with was a thing called a Paradise box. And back in the old days, everybody ran it. I don't know if many people run them nowadays, but that's the 3D or 2.5D, whatever it is, the V-carve engraving that's on the lid of that box. Landis says, when this unit is complete, will you be selling plans or material list for other DIYs? I'm not going to be selling anything, but I have a pretty detailed list of I made a spreadsheet of because I was trying to keep track of how much money I'm spending on this, because I wanted to build a really nice machine, but I'm like, well, I don't I don't want to spend what that Avid costs. And I'm nowhere near that. But the lead screw, or not lead screws, the linear rails, I found those on Amazon, and you could get what they called a 2-pack for $100. So you get 2 linear rails, 8 of the bearing blocks that go on them. Yeah, I guess that's it. And they were so you get 2 of those for $100. So I've got 2 sets of those because 2 linear rails are on the Y, and then I've got 1 each on the side. Or I'm sorry, two that are on that extrusion for the X, and then I have 1 on each side for the Y. So that was that. The 1500 millimeter ball screw. I started off, I bought 2 of those. I didn't buy the third one because I wasn't sure the length I needed for the X until I got my uprights done, and then I had to get a precise measurement so that I could cut that extrusion. All this you had. Sometimes I'd get in a hurry, but I'm like, no, you can't cut this until you don't want to cut it till you get out these other pieces done and know exactly what that length is.
Now
So
your ball screws are down on the 5-start rod, right down on the rods.
well, it's all ball screws
Oh, okay.
with a
Now, is that like a pillow block that mounts on that half-inch steel, or I mean half-inch aluminum, or how does that all work?
I'm not sure. Are you talking about the linear rails or the ball screws?
The ball screws.
Okay. Well, I can't show you a piece of the ball screw because
Right.
I don't have one.
No, I mean, how does that mount to that half-inch plate?
Well, when you buy the ball screw, or at least the ones I bought, you get really about 3 or 4 things. You get a 1500 millimeter ball screw. Then if you look, you see the black end thing on the right.
Yep.
That I drilled and tapped holes to mount that. They call that the BF12, I think is what that's called. And that's just got a bearing in it that makes that thing ride smooth when it's or turn smooth when you're running it. Then on the other end, you don't see one on the inside of this plate, but on the outside of that plate, there's a spacer block, and then that I actually 3D printed 100% infill. And then there's the other block similar to that one, but they call that a BK12. And it's kind of the same thing. It's got a bearing that you slide that into the ball screw through. Then it's got a nut that threads onto it to hold that on there. And then it has, I don't know, probably about an inch or inch and a half of 10 millimeter just plain shaft sticking out, and that's what you hook your coupler to. Now, if you look, you see, I mentioned, let me turn this camera and I'll kind of point to this stuff as I talk. I didn't buy this lead screw at first. I bought these 2, and they fit in here really good. I've got the BF end stop block just inside this channel here with the bearing. It runs through this nut block here, which is attached to the half-inch plate here on this upright. Then I had to fabricate. Let's see if I can. Maybe I can. Maybe I can do this. So I had to fabricate this bracket to give this thing a place to set. This is the BK12. So I fabricated 2 brackets, for one for each side. And then you can see the coupler right here spinning back and forth. And then I also, the NEMA 34 is basically fastened to the same place. But these holes are for NEMA 23s, which were in this originally. So I bought an adapter plate that converts NEMA 23s to NEMA 34. So you bolt the plate on using a NEMA 23 holes, and then you bolt the NEMA 34 stepper into tapped holes in that plate. So I had to do that 2 times. Now, for this one up here, and I'm going to try to get this where you can see this mess here. Right here, this is the BK12 block, like that one back there. But to get all this to work right, I had to make a spacer, which is a little over a 1/2 inch. That's 3D printed, and it's, like I said, 100% infill, so it's good and solid. Then I've got the BK12 block here. Then I've got, you got the coupler and then the stepper motor here. Well, obviously I had to stand all this off. And if this looks a little weird, it's only because it is. I didn't buy this one at the same time I bought the first two. But then when I figured out, I go, okay, I think I could probably make a 1400 millimeter work. Might have to space some stuff off, but might have to do it just a little bit on this way instead of coming out this way. Well, when I went to look, you can find 1500 millimeter, 1250 millimeter, 1000 millimeter on down all day long on Amazon. But I could not find a 1400 millimeter, and I wasn't going to special order anything. I'm like, I can make another 1500 millimeter work. So that's what I did. This is a 1500 millimeter, just like the two on the Y, but I tried putting that block on the opposite side of that, and then it wouldn't work out on this end. And you got to remember, I'm trying to make all this work with what I had. So when I bolted these linear rails on here and put these bearings on here and then put these plates on here, that distance is fixed. So everything I have to do is try to make it work within that. So although I'm not super crazy about this is 3D printed stuff. Again, whenever I'm going to print something that I need it really sturdy, this is PET G. It's printed at 100%. So it's really solid. And then over here, I'll swing the camera around. Over here, I had to get a little bit creative right here because the way these button head screws are. I couldn't do the same thing I did on this side. Now, if I was running a NEMA 23 with that smaller bolt pattern, I think I wouldn't have been that close to here. But you can see how I had to get kind of creative with a design on this side, whereas on this side, I'm okay with this. I think this looks okay, but this looks a little janky to me, but it works. I've got the heat gun out. I've had this thing running for like 3 hours and got the heat gun out. And the X motor here on this end only got to about 110 degrees Fahrenheit. So I don't think that's going to bother that PET G. At least it hadn't. So I think I'm going to be fine there. I also have these set, all three NEMA 34s. I have them set on the half current. So when they're not moving, they reduce to half current so they don't get as hot. That one up there, because I'll try to lean back here and get that one. That one up there, because it's a NEMA 23 and it's holding up a lot of stuff right there. That spindle is about 20 pounds by itself. And then you add all that other stuff, on a ball screw trying to hold it up. I left it on full current. And when I checked that sucker, it got to about 150 degrees Fahrenheit. So it gets way hotter than these other three.
John Thompson wants to know the gantry millimeter size, the extrusion.
It was a 1500 millimeter extrusion, and I cut off that much. Let's see, it was the measurement that I got. Yeah, it's just under 3 inches. Well, it probably was 3 inches by the time you lose the saw blade width.
And then what's the dimensions of the extrusion itself?
Well, before I cut it, it was 1500 millimeter, which is 50.
No, the width and height of the extrusion. Like
Okay. Well,
80-20 or.
let me tell you in inches, because that's probably what he's looking for. This is 160 millimeters, which is just over 6¼ inches tall. And then the width of it is 80 millimeters wide, which is a little over 3 1/8. And it is stout. That's a real thick web. Like I said, it was 42 pounds, just that piece by itself.
You ought to paint that thing gold and hang it on the wall.
This piece?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to throw it away. I don't know what I'll use it for, but it's pretty stout. But the finished dimension that I had to cut that to was 55 and 15/16 inches. And like I said, I measured that thing 2, 3, 4 times before I pulled that saw blade down on it, because
Jerry says you can use it for a pencil holder.
Yeah, it'd work good for that. This piece alone is heavy, just picking this piece up. But you can see a lot of if you look on top of that extrusion, you can see there's about 5 or 6 little things those are 3D printed to, basically they've got just a little lip on them, and that's just to help keep the drag chain from falling off.
Now, did you make the drag chain or did you buy it?
No, that's actually, I'm a little bit frustrated at the drag chain deal, because I bought some nice drag chain. Let's see if I can do this right here. I bought 2 of these.
Wow.
Big, beefy. And then without even trying them, I kept looking and I'm like, okay, well, one of these for the X and one of these for the Y. It's not going to be long enough. I need another one to put half of it with this one and half of it with the other one. That was the plan. Well, I got ready to start putting these on one day, and I couldn't figure out how to get the damn things apart without cracking them. Every time I tried to, it's like this stuff is way more brittle than what that cheaper stuff's made out of. So finally I said, well, I had about 1 meter or so of that 15 by 30. So I got on Amazon and bought 2 more of them. And then, of course, I'd already 3D printed brackets for this wide stuff. So I had to start over and print. I had to change my whole way of thinking. So I thought, well, now that I'm going to use the narrower stuff, I'll put the one on the X on top, similar to an oatmeal. If you look, if you look at that, it almost looks like, oh, you're trying to copy an oatmeal. Well, I'm not, because theirs is obviously not like that, and it's not got a 1500 millimeter ball screw where you need a 1400 millimeter or whatever. But let's see, how did I get this? Okay, there we go. But yeah, so far I'm really happy with it. Like I said, I've moved the machine around to different spots on the bed and then run that program because it does a lot of quick movements and all 3 axis moving and stuff like that. And I'm trying to get it all broke in because when you're putting something like that on a frame like I've done, just because I bolt those 2 linear rails on the side for the y-axis, there's no guarantee they're parallel. So one side was tightened up. Well, actually, both sides were tightened up. But what I did is I loosened the frame on the right side that holds that uh, that locks in that piece of sheet metal, that channel. So then as you move it back and forth, the one side's going to move fine, but the other side, if it's the least bit cantywampus or whatever, it'll straighten itself out because now it's got room to move. So you run it back and forth, and when you run it to this end, then you tighten those back down, and then you run it to the other end and tighten it back down, and then you shouldn't have any problems. I did the same thing with the x-axis. I put the linear rails in, and before I hung it up there, I made 3D printed some little jigs that I would bolt to the top of the. Let me just point here. They would fasten through these T slots, and then they would hang over a certain amount. Well, I made 3 of them, and you would put them here, and then clamp that like that, and then you would tighten these down and keep moving that thing around so that you get the same distance from the top on this one. But then when you put this one in, you don't tighten these up. You leave those loose, and then you run the machine back and forth. You get it down here to this end and tighten this one. Then you move it over a little more and tighten this one. And you can go to that end, do the same thing. Tighten this one, move it over a little, tighten that one. You want to make sure you get those parallel. You don't want to have them in any kind of little bind, or well, not a bind, but if they're not exactly parallel, and you can't tell just by looking, they look parallel, but you'll get a little bit of binding in those bearings as it tries to go across there. So once I move that back and forth and then tighten those up, and that's the same procedure that they do with the Avid when you're putting one of those things together. That's really where I got all that information from. They had a block that you set on top and fasten it and then clamp it, that top one to it. You tighten it up, and then the other one you leave loose. And as you're moving it back and forth, you tighten it up when you're next to the bearing. That way it's good and parallel. So anyway, what time is? Oh, we're past our hour. The video's live now. If anybody wants to go see it, but you've got to see it. You've got to see the first sneak peek here. And like I said, there's still a ton of things to do to it. The spoil board that'll come later because I'm not really ready to do that yet. I got to get the homing switches installed as soon as those other 2 come. They should be here, I think, Friday. And then I've got to run the cable from the VFD and plug it into the spindle. And then I've also got, I don't know if anybody remembers, but I used to run that Gatton CNC. It wasn't controlled by Mach 3 with the spindle. Javi had made me a remote that had a magnet that stuck on the front of the machine. So it had a switch where you turn it on, and it had a potentiometer where you would adjust the RPM. And then I can just look across, because when it's lit up, you can see what RPM you're running easily from here. And that's how I ran it. But I've got some cable, 6-wire cable that just came in today, and that will be replacing that remote. I'll be wired it into the VFD, then bringing it down here wiring it into the DB25, and then that cable will come up here, and then I'll have another short wire going from this DB25 breakout board to the Masso. So want to get it all controlled, and I'm going to use 6 wires because I want to use and I didn't do this before. It's currently set up with just 5 wires because it's not using reverse. Well, I want to go ahead and, as when I'm doing this, I want to go ahead and wire it up to do reverse, because you need reverse if you're going to use a rapid change ATC. You need to go forward and reverse. So I'd like to have one of those one day, but I figure while I'm at it, it's only one more wire, one more connection. So I'll go ahead and make that up where it's doing that too. So, have we got any other questions or anything? Or we got them all?
Got them all.
Okay, all right. Well, thanks for the good question, guys. And like I said, back to Landis's question. I'm not going to. This was for me. This is my. I wished I hadn't sold my Avid build. So,
the first time you store something on there, or the first time you assemble something on there, you're going to get heckled.
Oh, I know. But I got another one back here. Now, this one's probably going to go away now because I've got way too much stuff in here now. I've got the laser over there, this machine right there, this machine back here, and then I've got my workbench, which is also cluttered because I've got wires and terminal blocks and stepper motors and driver. I got stuff everywhere. And I started to clean this off for the show tonight, and I thought, I'm not going to bother because it's going to look just like that tomorrow, And plus, if I clean it off, then I won't be able to find something when I come out here tomorrow. So, but still got a lot to do. I think, that you think about it, that Masso Generation 2 that I have inside that box right there, that's about 9 years old. So it's still working great.
Wade's got to come in here if you want to look at it.
Okay. It's not as fancy as the G3 Masso Touch, obviously. And again, that's my long-term goal, would be to get one of those. But, those things are what, $1,400, $1,500 right now. So, and plus, I don't know what with the tariff deal where they fall. But so I thought, well, I'm going to make do with this. I'm not crazy about my little box. It shakes too much, that arm. That's too much weight for it to hold. But it'll get me by until I get all this other stuff done. Because, that as long as it's up and running, that's all that matters. It's all this other stuff needs to be done before I worry about any of that stuff. But to me right now, and it's just old Dave talking, take it or leave it. The best machine out there right now would be an alt mill, but throw away their control and get a G3 Masso Touch. I think that's the best control system out there right now. And I think the alt mill is the best machine out there. It's just that they're not using the Masso. They're sticking with that, whatever they call it, super longboard thing, and using G-Sender and all that, which is okay. But I don't think it's near as good as a Masso. So, and then of course you got PWM, but I think the jury's still out. I don't think there's many of them, if any, out in the wild yet, of that Dominator. And it'll be a lot like this. It'll be linear rails, ball screws, and a Masso G3 Touch. So
I,
All right,
I
Wade says I use an RS485 adapter to get my spindle on my new CNC to run forward and reverse. Yeah. Well, it's a simple setup, and if you're familiar with Peter Pasqualo, CNC Nuts, uh, he now works with Masso. Uh, he's their tech support guy. When I filled out a tech support ticket or whatever you call it to ask about the Generation 2, what the latest firmware and stuff, he's the one that answered my email. He goes, "Hey, Dave, how you doing? It's Pete." So uh, he's got a awesome line of videos to get anything to work with the Mass. So he shows how to set up the e-stop, how to set up homing switches, how to do the VFD and spindle, and got diagrams on there and everything. So I'm hoping I won't have much trouble doing that. Shouldn't that should be one of the easiest parts I do because, like I said, my cable is still connected to the VFD over there, and it's just coiled up, hung up there. I knew I might use it again another day. So, and of course, the main power plug is unplugged, but that's it. All right. Anybody else got anything? Any other questions or whatever? Landis, if like I said, I'm not going to be selling any plans or anything because this is all specific to just me because nobody else is going to have one of these frames like this. But as far as the components and stuff, I will be putting a list of all the stuff I used for this. Um, the Z-axis assembly that I bought, I bought that off of Amazon, and it was that Rat Motor Company or whatever, and I think it was $188. And I thought, man, by the time I spend my time milling all those parts and getting getting the right length linear rod, because it's got the same linear rails and ball screw as everything else on here. It's all the same. Um, so I don't think I could build it for that.
got a question for you, Dave. Let me.
Okay.
What did I just do here? I thought I posted it.
Well, I saw
There
it.
we go. There we go.
Do I have a rough idea of the cost so far? Yeah. I did. I tried. I was spending money. I mean, the Amazon guy. He's on a first name basis with my dog Jack now. I mean, he's coming every day. Sometimes bringing 3 or 4 things at once. But that's when I thought, okay, Dave, you can't go too crazy on this. So I went back through my thing. Now, like I said, the most expensive thing was the aluminum extrusion. It was tax, shipping, and everything was $421. So that was a big chunk. The Z-axis assembly was $188. The 2 aluminum plates that were 1/2 inch by 8 inch by 24 inches long, they were, I think, about $80 a piece. I forget what shipping is. I've got it on that spreadsheet. So altogether, that's about 170 so bucks or something like that for those 2. And then there's a lot of miscellaneous stuff. The linear rails and bearing blocks. Like I said, bought them off Amazon. They're the HGR 20s, which I didn't know this, but I was trying to get information on the alt mill to see what pitch their ball screws are. And I couldn't find anywhere where it said that, but it did say that they use the HGR 15 linear rails. So their linear rails are not as beefy as my linear rails. Just saying. So, but anyway, I bought those. They were like $100 for 2 linear rails, 8 blocks, and I bought 2 sets of those. The 1500 mil of ball screw with the BK12, the BF12, and the nut block and all that. They were, I think, $85 a piece, and I bought 3 of those. So I know when I added it all up, and I've spent a bunch more since then, or at least a little more. I was at around $1,600 or so. But a lot of, not everybody has a good metal frame sitting around like this, that I had. Like I said, this frame is about 17 years old, and I thought, man, that's a good frame. You bolt it all together, and it really squares itself up, and it's good and solid. Especially when you get the spoil board and the plywood base on there, and all you start putting weight on it. It really, you can tell the difference because I always use the underneath because I have those rails that run across, and I would always take 2x4s and run one from front to back, and then that's where I stack all my plywood sheets that I was cutting up. So when I had my GAT CNC on there, that thing was really heavy. It's on casters, but you couldn't hardly roll it around. And it's still on casters right now, but my garage floor is so crooked. I've got to, on the left side, I've had to prop stuff up under them. And I'm thinking what I'm going to do is take the drawing for the foot, or it's just a plate, and then I have a bolt pattern that matches the casters. But I think I'm going to go find that drawing and then draw up something else, and then use my mill to make some new plates to put on the bottom, and then have a big nut welded on there where I can use leveling legs, where I can level it up, because it's pretty close. It's not perfect, but your machine doesn't have to be perfectly level. It's just the bed has to be parallel to the gantry. That's what matters. But that's easier to do if you can get the whole thing level. But anyway, all right. Well, we've been on there over an hour and a half. Like I said, that video has.
There's your last question.
Ryan would say that's a cheaper assembly table than the last one. Yeah. Another great looking machine. Thank you. Does this one have a name? Well, it's still got Sidewinder CNC on the front of it because that's what it was originally. I probably won't come up with any kind of name for it, but I know y'all probably think I'm just blowing smoke, but I have got a notebook thing this size in there in the house, a whole page full of stuff I want to do. And a lot of it I could do with this other machine, but this one's going to be fun to run, especially when I get all the homing switches and soft limits. When I get all those little details set up on this thing, then it's going to be a lot of fun to run, and I can go, okay, now let's flip them dip switches and put some more power to this thing, because it already goes pretty fast. I've really got conservative settings on all the X and the Y. I think I've got the max speed set at 300 inches a minute. But when I first did it, when I first set it up, I go, well, let's just see what it is. I put 500 inches a minute, and it'll do it no problem. So, and that's with not having the power turned up on those dip switches on the drivers. So, because I'm only using about half the amps that it'll take on that. So it's going to be fun as I get farther along. But I figure I'd held y'all off long enough. I had a lot of folks saying, what's he doing? What's he doing? So there you go. That's what I've been working on the past 5 or 6 weeks. So All right. Well, I guess me and Paul will bail on out of here. Like I said, the video's live on this same YouTube channel. So if you're a subscriber, you probably got a notification. And if you're not a subscriber, why not? What's wrong with you? So anyway, go check out the video. Let me know. I'm going to go look and see if it's got any views yet. Yeah, it's got 30 views already. 30 views in 30 minutes. So somebody's snuck over and watched it. So
That's pretty good.
But anyway, yeah, I think this is going to be a fun machine. If anybody that's watching or watches this on replay has a suggestion on how I should do the spoil board, drop your suggestion in the comments down below. Not the live chat comments, but the other comments, because I'm open to ideas. I've watched a lot of different videos and I just can't make up my mind. I really want to get away from, like I've always done, just cut strips and then T-track. I mean, that works. But when you do the narrow ones, I think these MDF strips are probably about 4 inches or so. Then you got T-track and another 4 inch, and then when you go to do something pretty good size and you're trying to do the tape and CA glue method, you're only hitting where the MDF is. You got that little ditch where the T-track is. So I'm thinking about, if I do T-track, I'll go back and probably use a much wider thing. Or I may not do T-tracks at all. I may do dog holes. I don't know. Let me know what you think, what I should do. Like I said, it's a blank canvas right now. I just got it setting up there and I haven't done anything. I want to figure out for sure what I want to do before I start working on it. So, and I got plenty of time because I got lots of other little things to do before I get that ready to run. All right. Well, me and Paul is gonna get the heck out of Dodge here. Thank y'all for hanging around. I hope I didn't bore y'all talking about this thing.
The last thing I thought you were going to build was another CNC.
See, I told you it was. Well, see, I figured everybody would, because I had talked about taking that other one like this that I got from Melinda and kind of, doing some linear rails and doing some stuff with that. And that was kind of the original plan. But then when I spotted that frame that I'd really just forgot about, and I thought, man, if I'm going to spend some money on stuff, let's go big or go home, So yeah, it's probably not going to replace my Avid completely, because that was a pretty sweet machine. But at least I've got this about the same cutting area. It might be a little smaller. And I've got, some better speeds and stuff like that. So, and be back using a water cooled spindle. So, it's going to be, I won't say it's going to be the last one I build, because I know better than to say that. That's to me, part of the fun is the design and building something like this, especially with this one, since I already had the frame and some certain measurements were set in stone. It's like, okay, now how do I make this work doing it the way I want? But I think it turned out pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. So anyway, we're going to get out of here. Let's get the button ready. Where is that thing? Oh, here we go. I think it's right, bud. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. Go check out the video. And at least me and Paul will be back next week.
Yep.
Good night, everybody.